Hello, and welcome to the podcast. It's a time of transition on the podcast. I haven't mentioned this before, and it was first the reframing of the whole, not necessarily the content, but of the whole image of the podcast, as well as there's been a transition in terms of content creation, in the sense that I haven't been creating much because there's a lot that has been happening which required to distill a bit all the events. There's been since May. I had to leave India almost on a run because of the conflict with Kashmir. After that, I went to Bhutan, attended the mindfulness conference. It was packed with information that I'm still distilling, actually. Then I'm working on a project for Bhutan, directly with the Office of the Prime Minister, and I will shortly start to report on that. As from Nepal, where I was recently, I also witnessed the revolt and protest and resignation of the government, and now the proclamation of a new interim government. So there's been a lot, and particularly in the past 2 weeks. So what I thought that was also I've done is I already changed the name of the podcast, and I transitioned from Dharma on the Sidewalk to Echoes and Stories of Dharma. Why? Because that's basically what is about. No teachings, but simple Dhamma for daily life is what really matters. And as well as with the rise of AI content, I find it even more critical to maintain a thread of pure Dhamma alive and maintain the vocabulary as it is, and not, I've heard some content talking about Buddha as a rock star, and that the Buddhist world is now envisioning a new rock star and a new in stardom. There will be Maitreya. So all that is a kind of a clickbait sort of content, but it also disturbs the waves of Buddhism. Pure Dhamma must remain available to those who want to hear pure Dhamma. And so I'd like to reflect a bit on what I actually witnessed in Nepal recently. And that is resilience, impermanence, and the quiet power of compassion. It just happened that in the span of 2 weeks, I traveled between what I come to call my two homes, Thailand and Nepal, and witnessed a living demonstration of impermanence. I left one nation led by a woman prime minister. I entered another one governed by a man. And then I returned to the first one only to find out it too had shifted leadership. Meanwhile, the country I just left was waking up to a new political reality after 5 days of violent protest and the formation of an interim government. That led me to reflect a lot. It was just not random. I think it was there were a number of synchronicities there. But one that touched my heart to the deepest, and that's also the day my beautiful daughter passed away 11 years ago. There also was a revolt outside, and 30 mothers had lost their children, like me, just not in a peaceful way. When I returned to the country after the cremation, there was a new government in place. But the violence had been way beyond what it has been in Nepal. And so, again, I had a lot to reflect on the past few days. And from a Buddha Dharma perspective, change, when ripe, happens really very swiftly. And sometimes It arrives through elections and sometimes through upheavals. Yet one thread runs through it all. Change never comes without loss. And to see that clearly, it's not to be pessimistic, but to acknowledge reality. When the structures dissolve and the jobs vanish, lives are upended and certainties erode, and naturally grief follows. It's a cycle of life. It is not possible to have something new without having to shed something, leave something behind that is not meant to be there. It just cannot coexist. Still, within this cycle, there lies the seeds of renewal. And these are lessons. These are awakening lessons for people who aren't acquainted to see this. Yes, mothers have lost some of their children. Yes, wives have lost some of their husbands. Mostly it's men who've been fighting. So that is not that we support violence. And that is also doesn't mean that we have an empathy or compassion. It means that it's very rare to have change happening without losing anything in the back on the other side. But Nepal also offers a vivid example of a paradox of the seeds of renewal. So I've worked initially in my professional life. Over a few decades, I worked in several crisis zones. And I've really, really encountered people as resilient as the Nepalis. Again and again, whether it is political shifts or natural disasters or the COVID pandemic, the same quality emerges. Steadiness that is not denial, but a kind of secular equanimity. This capacity to feel pain of loss while still orienting towards the light beyond darkness is what allows societies and individuals to endure. How did the Buddha call that? The Buddha called that upekkha, equanimity. Equanimity is one of the 4 immeasurable qualities of the awakened heart. In Sanskrit called the Brahma Viharas. There are 4. One is metta, loving kindness. One is mudita, sympathetic joy. One is karuna, compassion. And the other one is upekkha, equanimity. They are not in order. Each of them includes the other one. They are more like in concentric circles. Like in 3 dimension, it becomes like a tube, interchangeable. They're not linear, definitely not linear. Equanimity or upekkha does not mean being numb, meaning not feeling sad for these. Rather, it means holding sorrow and hope in the same open hand. And in Buddhist psychology, this is paired with karuna. So karuna and upekkha go together. Compassion differs from empathy in a crucial way. Empathy mirrors another's pain and can exhaust us. We see the other people's pain as ours and we feel it deeply and we can get exhausted. Compassion acknowledges that pain but also moves towards alleviating it. So it's kind of a step further. And it also, in that moving from alleviating it, it also includes, what can I do? What can I do to help? I also recently had a chance, part of the Bhutan project, to hold private conversations with neuroscientist Dr. Tanya Singers, whose research with figures like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Thupten Jinpa, Gelong, Mathieu Ricard, secular teacher John Kabat-Zinn, and others, just to name a few, has eliminated this difference. She's made research, between brackets, put people in the MRI, studied electrodes, the brain on meditation, the brain on compassion, the brain on empathy, the mind on compassion, the mind on empathy, etc. And the results are, evidence shows that empathy activates neural circuits tied to distress, often leading to burnout. And compassion activates different circuits associated with positive affect, motivation, and action. It doesn't drain, it energizes. If it was draining, all the monks would be totally numbed, totally flattened, because with all that is happening in the world, there is a lot of material to be exhausted. So that's a kind of a bit of a stereotyped example, but it's quite clear. But what I witnessed in Nepal, so I witnessed earthquake and political turmoil several times, revolts, and COVID pandemic wasn't easy either. And that is, in Nepal, there's always this compassion in action at the societal level. The society, the people move by a collective wish to rebuild, to care, to support each other. And this capacity is what makes real resistance possible. Empathy brings overload of emotions on a dead-end street, but compassion opens the heart and opens the gate to wisdom. For each of us, the lesson we can draw from these scenarios is both personal and political. We can cultivate equanimity so we are not toppled by the inevitable shifts of life. We can train our hearts towards compassion so that our response to suffering is not collapse but constructive action. And as societies, we can recognize and strengthen these capacities in our communities, or simply even just with our immediate environment. Change and loss always come together. Yes. Just think about a metaphor. Just think about how when you just don't like your white hair and you put color. So where is the white hair at that moment? But within them lies the potential for wisdom, for renewal, and for the subtle and powerful force of compassion to transform suffering into resilience. And the last bit about Nepal is that on my return flight home, I had long conversations with two persons. A woman married to a Nepali living abroad, and a Nepali head of a human rights NGO also living abroad. All the conversations converged to the same point. Nepal and its people have always a way to resilience that is deeply loved in the nation and abroad. And I feel deeply that it always finds its way back up to normalcy. Last and not least, its people exemplify Buddha's teachings on reality and eventually upekkha. Thank you for being with us, and I look forward to start creating some content again. Just bear with me as times are very busy at the moment. Thank you for being with us.